Here's the truth that ruins the caveman fantasy. For most ancient humans in most places, the steady day-to-day calories didn't come from hunting. They came from gathering. Hunting is dramatic, but it's unreliable. You can track an animal for 2 days and come home with nothing. What kept people alive in between was the unglamorous work of gathering roots, tubers, nuts, seeds, berries, wild greens, the kind of food a child or an elder could collect close to camp without risking their life. In a lot of foraging societies, this quiet, reliable plant food made up the majority of the diet. The hunters got the glory, the gatherers got everyone through the winter, and these weren't the plants you know. Wild fruit was small, sour, and full of seeds. Wild almonds were actually poisonous, packed with cyanide, until humans learned which ones were safe and how to treat them. Every plant in their world had to be understood. When it was ripe, which part you could eat, what would kill you. Ancient people carried an encyclopedia of botany in their heads that would put most of us to shame. They could name and use hundreds of species. We've traded all of that for knowing which aisle has the cereal. Now, when they did eat meat, they wanted the part you'd throw away. If you handed an ancient hunter a lean, trimmed chicken breast, they'd be confused, possibly insulted, because the thing they were actually after wasn't the muscle, it was the fat. This is one of the most important and least known facts about ancient eating. You cannot survive on lean meat alone. Eat nothing but lean protein and you'll get sick and eventually die. It's a real condition, sometimes called rabbit starvation, because rabbit is so lean it can actually starve you while your stomach is full. Your body needs fat and carbohydrates for energy. Pure protein won't cut it. So ancient humans prized fat above almost everything, and the richest fat on a wild animal is hidden inside the bones, the marrow. After a kill, they'd crack the big bones open with stones to scoop out the soft, fatty marrow inside. We find these smashed bones at ancient sites constantly. They even went after the skull for the brain, another dense source of fat. The lean red meat we obsess over today? To them, that was almost a byproduct. The good stuff was the grease. They ate nose to tail. Liver, packed with vitamins, was treasure. Kidneys, blood, intestines, fat around the organs, all of it used, none of it wasted. The idea of eating only the nice cuts and binning the rest would have looked insane. In their world, throwing away an organ could mean throwing away the nutrient that kept your eyesight or your gums healthy. And then there was the single most prized food in the ancient world, honey. Of everything available to a forager, nothing came close to honey. It's pure, dense, instant energy, the most calorie-rich wild food on Earth. Ancient humans were obsessed with it. We don't just guess this. There's prehistoric rock art showing people climbing cliffs on rope ladders, surrounded by clouds of angry bees, reaching into a hive, risking dozens of stings for a comb full of gold. In some modern foraging groups that still live this way, honey can make up an enormous share of their calories in season, and a successful honey raid is a cause for genuine celebration. Sugar wasn't a vice in the ancient world. It was a rare, dangerous, glorious prize you climbed a cliff to get. Here's the invention that changed eating forever: fire. Cooking is the quiet hero of this whole story. When humans started cooking their food, everything shifted. Cooked food is softer, safer, and dramatically easier to digest. Roast a hard, fibrous tuber and suddenly your body can pull far more energy out of it. Cook meat and you kill the parasites and unlock the nutrients. A cooked meal essentially does part of your digestion for you before it hits your stomach. Some scientists think this is one of the reasons our brains were able to grow so large. Cooking gave us a calorie surplus that raw food never could. It also meant the fire became the kitchen, and the kitchen became the center of social life. Ancient humans weren't just eating to survive. They were gathered around a fire, sharing a cooked meal together. That's not so different from you. Now the part that would turn your stomach. Ancient humans did not have the squeamishness we do about food being a little off. Rotten and fermented food was completely normal. Meat that had aged for days, even weeks, wasn't garbage, it was dinner. In cold climates, a carcass could be stashed and eaten long after it would horrify a modern shopper. Some groups deliberately let fish and meat ferment, burying it or leaving it to break down because fermentation actually preserves food and creates nutrients. To them, it wasn't disgusting. It was storage. It was flavor. They'd also eat the partially digested stomach contents of the animals they killed, a ready-made mush of pre-processed plants, rich in things their own bodies needed. They ate bugs by the handful, grubs, termites, beetle larvae, all of them excellent sources of fat and protein. Along the coasts, humans feasted on shellfish. We've found ancient shell middens, literal mountains of discarded shells, built up over generations of seafood dinners. That seafood, rich in omega-3s, may have been some of the best brain food they ever ate. And here's a myth worth correcting. They had bread before farming. We used to think grains and flour arrived with agriculture, but we've found grinding stones tens of thousands of years old, still coated in starch. Ancient humans were grinding wild seeds and roots into flour and likely baking simple flatbreads long before anyone planted a single crop. The first bread is older than farming itself, so what did all this do to their bodies? Their teeth tell the story. With almost no refined sugar, cavities were rare, but their teeth were worn nearly flat, ground down by the grit and stone dust that came with food prepared on rock. And interestingly, once humans started eating a lot of honey, sticky wild starches, and acorns, we start to see the first cavities appear. The very first dental problems in history were the price of the very first sweet tooth. There was no breakfast, lunch, and dinner, no 3 meals a day. You ate when food was there, sometimes a lean, hungry stretch of roots and not much else, and then a sudden enormous feast after a big kill, everyone gorging because the meat wouldn't keep. Feast and famine, written into the rhythm of life. No salt shaker, no bottle of oil, no sugar. Every flavor came straight from the living world around them. It's easy to look at all this, the marrow, the rotten meat, the handfuls of grubs, and feel how far away they are from us. But think about what it really shows. These were people who understood their entire environment as food, who knew that the fat mattered more than the meat, who climbed cliffs for sweetness, who tamed fire to feed their own growing brains, who turned poison plants into dinner through sheer accumulated knowledge. They were not mindlessly chewing on bones. They were the most adaptable eaters this planet has ever produced. And every single thing you eat today, every recipe, every craving, every reason a warm, fatty, sweet meal makes you happy, runs straight back to them and to the choices they made around a fire a very long time ago. So the next time you sit down to eat, remember, your taste in food is older than civilization itself. What part of the ancient world should we step into next? Drop it in the comments and subscribe, because there's a whole lost world left to explore.